Thank you so much for joining us for my wonderful friend RJ, known as Bahrâm Anushiravân's talk, his journey to the Zoroastrian faith. Before we start, a few housekeeping rules. Please mute yourself. If you don't know where the mute is, the microphone is, it's in the lower left. You can just click on it. There's a red slash comes in and it will mute you. Please mute yourself. And if you have any question and answer, please leave it to the end of the talk. We'll address those if we have time. And then please put your question. Meanwhile, you can put your question in the chat. We'll try to get that. If you have any question after RJ's talk, you can raise your hand and address that. So I want to read a brief biography of RJ, known as Bahrâm Anushiravân, and then we can, we can start talking about his journey. So Bahrâm Anushiravân was born and raised in Anaheim. He's an avid historian, has a deep passion for the pre-Islamic history and culture of Greater Iran. A devoted Zoroastrian, he's actively involved in his community and his causes, working to preserve and promote the teaching of his faith. Robert, or Bahrâm Anushiravân, began his higher education journey at Fullerton College, studying business, and is currently at Saddleback College, where he's preparing to transfer to University of California, Irvine, for his PhD in Iranian history. A note, please go follow him. He has a wonderful Instagram page called the Sassanid Immortal. Please go join his page. You'll learn a lot. Okay, the floor is yours, RJ John.
All right, sounds good. All right, we got everybody here and I'm ready to go. So yeah, my journey to Zoroastrianism has been, like, without a doubt, the greatest choice I've ever made in my life. Really, like, the happiness and the elation that I have every day being a Zoroastrian, I just feel at peace with myself. Surely I have challenges every day and I go through struggles like everybody else. I'm still a work in progress, but every day I feel that Mazda is with me. I mean, I feel him guiding me. I just feel him close to me, and I don't feel abandoned or forsaken by any means. And coming to know Ahura Mazda, I felt that there was always something beyond what I was raised in that was calling me to something higher. So I come from a very devoted Christian background. My whole life was centered around the Bible. Actually, yeah, I remember my first preschool was a Christian school, so we learned the Bible stories, Old Testament stories, and learned about the love of Christ. And even when I got into elementary school, I was again more indoctrinated with Christian theology and learning. And so my my life was really revolved around the Bible, and it was almost like the Bible in my own life, they were just synonymous. They couldn't be separated. And my mom and my dad were both also devoted in their faiths. My dad comes from a Christian background as well. He comes from a Roman Catholic background. My mom comes from a Southern Baptist, Christian sect. I think it's a Southern Baptist convention. There's so many different sects, but she was a Southern Baptist. And so growing up, I actually had a combination of Catholicism and a Baptist interpretation of Christianity. Um, Actually, when I was in the first grade, I went to a Catholic military school in Anaheim, California called St. Catherine's, and there I got a Catholic education, and I remember partaking in Catholic rituals, like, doing the bread and wine, the body of Christ, and the whole Eucharist kind of thing. So I grew up just very much with the Christian theology as just the backbone for my life. And believe it or not, me being part of this faith, it actually led me to finding what would ultimately lead me to the journey of Zoroastrianism. So I remember in 1997, I used to go to a Baptist church in Yorba Linda, California called Friendship. And every Sunday we would, study the Old Testament and of course the New Testament, but it was mainly a lot of the Old Testament we studied. And reading the book of Ezekiel, we learned about Cyrus the Great, and we learned about his benevolence and how he was known as the anointed by God himself. And I always wondered how a Persian, somebody who was well, from what I understood at the time, a pagan, why would God choose this man to be a Messiah for the Jewish people? Why would he free him from Nebuchadnezzar and return the people back to Israel or Judea when this man really had no association with them whatsoever? So that was a figure whom I really admired. I used to like Moses a lot, but then when I found about Cyrus, I was like, oh, this is a great king. I really like him a lot. I mean, this benevolent guy from Persia, and I didn't have much access to information at the time, so I mostly had to rely on things like TV. And I actually do have Iranian relatives. My mother's sister, her name is Camille. She married an Iranian man from Kerman. So, as a boy, he did teach me a lot about Iranian culture, its cuisine, and he told me about Cyrus, or he called Kurush. So I got that understanding of Kurush and his word of mouth and from the Bible. So I remember I saw a documentary once, and it was talking same thing about the Babylonian captivity with Daniel and the Israelites, and same thing was mentioned. Cyrus the Great freed the Jews, and it mentioned how Cyrus was a practitioner of this fire worshiping religion from a sorcerer named Zoroaster. And when I heard that, even as a young boy, like in the early 2000s, that name Zoroaster just stuck with me. Like it just something that it had that even to this day I can remember that same exact day hearing his name. And I remember there was a something like a fire altar in the back of my head, and I just never understood why I had this burning all like this burning fire in my head just embedded into my mind, and I just never could get out of my head, and I just wondered what it was telling me. And so as I got older, I was also a fan of Queen growing up, and I didn't find out till later that Freddie Mercury himself was a Zoroastrian. And so I'm just dawning to myself, like all these great men, like Freddie Mercury, one of my favorite artists of all time, and Cyrus the Great, and these men were Zoroastrians. And I was like, these, I want to know more about this, religion, this faith, and I want to know more about also the background from which they came from, which is Persia. So I got acquainted with books by Richard Nelson Fry, my little local library down here in Anaheim. I stumbled on the book called The Heritage of Persia, and that really opened myself up more to Persian culture. And of course, with my uncle, whose name is Mohsen Irani, he, kind of helps me know more about Iran's culture a little bit more. But studying Richard Fry's books and my little connection with my uncle and his children, I was able to really get more in tune with Persian culture. And I just remember just how I've loved it. And I just remember just how I've had so much enriching experiences with Iran's heritage. And so I really just started to study more, and I wanted to know also more about Zoroastrianism. But in the early 2000s, a lot of information wasn't available. So I was very limited. And as a Christian at the time, it was always a sin. You're not able to explore other religions. You're not, everything was seen as as a, how to say it? It's you're diverting yourself from Christ's message, and you're practicing teaching the Antichrist if you desire to venture elsewhere. So all my life, I was always confined to going to church, and we settled with a church called Knott Avenue in Anaheim. And that's a church I went to. I saw a lot of things there that really broke my faith. Youth pastors that I knew did a lot of scandalous things, a lot of adultery. You're always told every Sunday you're a sinner, you're not good, you're not worthy of God's grace, and you're deserving of hell more than you are, the love of Christ because you're a sinner. And so growing up with that, I've always just felt defeated and broken, and I just never really at all felt like I was ever my true self. I just always felt like every time I went to church, I was always sucked away from my life force. And I just felt every time I would go, I was always just feel sick. I would never feel this spiritual fulfillment. And as an African American, growing up in the States with racism and all kinds of other systemic things that challenge us as a people, post-traumatic stress disorder, and then you're told by Christ that you're not good enough. And so I dealt with a lot of self-esteem issues growing up, and I then of course Christianity was reinforcing it to me. And even with all of that, defeatedness in my mindset, I've always saw this again, this altar in my mind, just light, just still illuminating, and just never knowing what it meant. But I've always felt, there was always something out there calling to me. And there was a point in 2009 where I was just, again, looking for answers to life. I just never found the questions in Christianity that fulfilled me. And even reading Christian theology, you kind of see how God Himself, Yahweh, isn't this God that is all good. You see in the book of Isaiah, verse 47, verse 45:7, you see that He's a God that not only creates light and darkness, but He creates evil. And then when I heard that, and I tried to explain to the pastor, they would try to like rationalize it, but how can a God be all good if He creates evil? You read in the Old Testament, like in the book of Samuel, how he um, he invoked a evil spirit and attacked Saul. And I'm like, why would a God who's all good, partner with demons to attack one of His prophets or one of His kings? And I just started just questioning like how a God can be all good and all loving and have somebody like Christ give His life for you, but yet you see God throughout the Bible is He endorses slavery, mass genocide. He has this wrathful nature and He creates evil. So I just found out that this religion wasn't for me. Always going to church every Sunday, feeling defeated and like I was always sucked dry of my dignity and my, just my overall well-being. And then you're seeing how God is wrathful in the Bible. And I just said, you know what, there has to be more to this. And I started to get involved with New Age religions, like into chakras, into things like the Law of Attraction by Abraham Hicks. I even got into things like Pure Land Buddhism. I used to be very enthusiastic with Japanese culture, and I know the Shinran Buddhist sect, they call it Jodo Shinzu, is very popular. And they always taught that, salvation comes to you easy. All you had to do was recite Namu Amida Butsu, and that was what gave you salvation. And just by being compassionate and giving to others, and and using your own mind to really change the outcome of your life and your reality, I found that appealing. So I started to incorporate that with my new age beliefs. And I would say that again, I wasn't finding the happiness I was looking for. Sure, I felt more empowered because I always felt with Christianity, you're here to live for God's will, whatever He has for your life. You got to just accept it. Because I know in the book of Ephesians it says, or in the book of Romans it says like, all things are through Him and because of Him. So like your life and what you experience is all His will. But I always felt that it was empowering knowing that you were able to finally have control of your life. And again, I was, getting into college, and this is going back to my days at Fullerton College, studying business. I was I was somebody very ambitious. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to live in Newport Beach. I wanted to, have it all. And so that's why I was into things like manifestation and getting more in tune with the law of attraction, reading books by authors like Bob Proctor, reading The Secret. And uh, and so I was really ambitious at that time. I was involved with a lot of network marketing businesses, and I was trying to do everything in my power to really get closer to my dreams because I felt like the church wasn't giving me happiness and my own personal life wasn't as fulfilling. And so I thought, oh, maybe making money and so would, um, really have me reach my goal. So in Fullerton College, again, I got involved with a network marketing business called Monavie. And of course, it was a failed business venture. And I just started noticing just a lot of things in my life started falling apart, and I was exploring more. And as I'm getting more knowledge of Persia's history, I'm starting to see more of the appeal of Zoroastrianism, like how, life is a struggle between good and evil, and this is the oldest monotheistic religion. It's actually what influenced your Christian faith. It's older than the Buddhist sect you're practicing. So I'm just like, this religion seems appealing. So I started, becoming more infatuated more with Persia's history, but I still wasn't ready on my journey yet. So, so fast forward going into 2017, 2018-ish, um, I remember I saw a documentary by Morgan Freeman, the one where he even, what is it called? Where he's like, is it the Journey of God? I think, or the Journey Finding God. I think that's what it's called. But I do remember he actually went to California Zoroastrian Center and he met, a close friend and a man I call a brother as well, Armin Arion. And I was also not only infatuated with Morgan Freeman's desire to be part of the Zoroastrian religion, but I also saw Armin as somebody very inspiring because I remember reading about his stories of how, he fled from, Iran and, was in Germany, and then he came here with nothing, had to deliver pizzas, and, I even got shot at one point of his life. And then I just saw how he just has a very beautiful shop there in Claremont, California, Xerxes for Gents. And I just saw this, and I saw that he's the president of California Zoroastrian Center. So I just saw that, oh man, this man has it all. And, he's like that success story everybody would like to have in their life. And so I was just seeing a pool. It's like Morgan Freeman is contemplating Zoroastrianism. Then I see this awesome guy who is now a close friend to me. He's a president, has a successful shop, a beautiful family. And this is the time too where I was really in my ambitious mode. And so I was always wondering, maybe is this religion my calling? Like, am I, is it my calling? Because there was just so much in my life, even in 2017, with relationships and a lot of stress. I kind of developed a little health problems, nothing too serious, but like, a lot of fatigue, a lot of high blood pressure and stuff, and stuff that I never had before because I'm trying to overwork. I'm in like gig work, like Lyft and Uber, TaskRabbit. I'm just like really trying to make it in life, and I just always felt like no matter what God I prayed to, I mean, whether I was praying to Yahweh or again, reciting Namu Amida Butsu or hoping I can manifest, but thinking the right thoughts. I just saw that none of this was really happening. It was really fulfilling my life. And but then I've always felt like there's something out there for you. And I always felt like in life, the things that you may look for and ask for, they're not always far away. They're always right there in front of you. Because I just remember years ago when I was doing martial arts in the city of Westminster. Right across the street is California Zoroastrian Center, and I remember I was passing that, and I used to always say, "Man, that's a cool looking place." And I used to always see that big five of heart, you see the good thoughts, good words, good deeds under the marquee, and my head always turned toward that building, no matter how many times I passed going on Hazard Avenue to my Taekwondo lessons. So I just remember one day in 2018, I was going through a lot. Even there's some stuff in my family problems. My dad was going through some issues with taxes and things, and there's just a lot of things also with my jobs. I was out of work at the time, and I was trying to find ways to survive, and I also had a bad breakup with a relationship, and I just remember just feeling so defeated, probably at my lowest point, and I remember I just got on my knees and I just hold on, hold on. Yeah, so I got on my knees and I just was just praying to God and just asking like like are you real, or I mean are you the true God, or uh is this all a lie or whatever. I was maybe just talking to any other God I assumed to be the God that was part of the figment of my imagination. And so I just got down on my knees and I just pray to God, just to, like give me clarity, true, what is my purpose in life and where do I belong? And so I remember something just astonished, came into my soul almost, and just told me, you know what, you need to start um, really, doing more of your Persian studies again for some reason. And then I'm just thinking, like, as I'm reading more books by different authors, like Kaveh Farouk's the Sassanids, and more books by Richard Fry, like The Golden Age of Persia. And then something just told me, like, maybe after all I've been through in life, and I'm reading about how fire is situated around the belief in Zoroastrianism, and I see this fire still in my head, and I said to myself, you know what? Life hasn't been fulfilling for me. Maybe my calling might be Zoroastrianism. So let me study more about Zoroastrianism. And then, so and behold, I was on Instagram, and I remember I met this Russian convert, and he started noticing, like, oh, you like a lot of Persian culture and history on your page, and are you a Zoroastrian? Because I posted a Favahar on my page, and I'm like, no, I'm not a Zoroastrian yet. He's like, well, have you ever read the Gathas? I'm like, the Gathas? And I'm like, no, I never. I just know about the Avesta, and I know about that. Supposedly, what Zarathustra's book was because he had 22 Nasks, but I never thought, oh, the Gathas. And so I started to go on YouTube and start looking for like Gotha commentaries or any information regarding it. And so I met a another close friend of mine, Kenneth Christensen, and I remember I met him a long time ago, but I didn't realize that years later, we would actually not only be close friends, but he's somebody that will actually be that light to kind of introduce me to Zoroastrianism, or like to invite me. So I remember reading his, sorry, watching his page, and he was talking about how he also became Zoroastrianism because became Zoroastrian through the Gothas, and he was really recommending this book by, or the translation by Khosrau Kazai. I know, rest in peace. I know you passed away. And so I went on Amazon and I started to read. I started to order the book, and then I finally received it. And I remember just reading the translation, and I just fell deeply in love with it. I just felt that even though it's a small book, it's like everything in there is just it just seems to me. I mean, like, it's amazing how the Gothas, this was composed like 5,000 years ago and has everything in it that is like the blueprint for humanity. I mean, you have just like, it's talking about how it's the struggle between good and evil, and it talks about what man's purpose is. And I which is it's kind of astonished too how it talks about that really mankind has a right to happiness, or radiant happiness, or as we call ushta. And I remember reading, it was at Yasna 43:1, where it talks about, happiness comes to those who make others happy. And like, you never really got that, in other books. Like, when I was a Buddhist, we were always taught that life is a struggle. Basically, everything around you is Maya, an illusion. So you don't know if that suffering is even true or not. You're always about detachment. Even when I used to talk to Christian pastors, they always talked about, oh, you know what, you shouldn't want happiness. In life, you're supposed to find purpose. The Bible doesn't mention happiness anywhere. You just have to find joy. And I always found out but what is joy when you have no happiness, or there's no effort to be put forward for let's say a or a joyful environment. So you know Zoroastrian always taught me, like, no, you have a right to be happy. And then you see other things in it, like how Zarathustra was a very social advocate. I mean, you see like how he was against slavery. What is, like, in Yasna, was it Yasna 32:15? Zarathustra was against, the enslavement of his population. He was against the tyranny of the Kavis and the Karapans. He fought against tyranny. And as a Christian, one thing that always disturbed me was how in the book of Philemon, you read about how the Apostle Paul returned a runaway slave to his slave master friend. um, and I always thought, like, why would a book that supposedly about love and compassion and and salvation, why are things like slavery upheld in such a holy book? But then you see in Zarathustra's religion, he is completely against any form of slavery and bondage, in bondage of any kind. And then you read about how free will, like, there's really true free will in the Gothas. There is the idea that man kind of has a right to choose. People are not, here to just simply be forced into a belief or to adopt, the status quo. He teaches you through vohumana to think and to, use it every given situation to see what is fit as a truth. And um, also, I've always liked how he encouraged meditation. When I was a Buddhist, or kind of dwindling in between my Buddhist, background, my New Age belief, I was into like the meditative aspect of it. And I think one thing that was a really defining moment for me that allowed me to really allow Mazda into my life and to really get that intuition and to really guide me to where I really need to be, um, was not only learning like Yata Hu Vadio, Ashim Vahu, Yenge Hatam, Aryam, and Isha, but he always talked about in Yasna 34:1 about how any intuition or any wisdom you can attain comes through deep meditation. And I just remember reading the Gathas and reciting the prayers, actually learning them in their Avestan language, and just meditating. I just realized that the best way to truly connect with Mazda and the divine is just that silent meditation, and just to be there to cultivate that wisdom. Because one thing I know about Mazda, he's there for you. I mean, he's real. And out of all the gods I've prayed to, or deities, or Buddhist davas, I just found that Mazda has been this divinity that has answered me. And I just noticed that when I gave myself to him in 2018, I just felt completely transformed. I felt, different. I felt alive. I felt like I've never felt before. No more feeling fatigued and like I'm defeated. I have dignity again. Or dignity that I never felt before. I feel like I just felt brand new. And if any of you were to meet me years ago, I was a very different person. I was very shy. I wasn't as social as this. Matter of fact, I would be scared to death to even do this, live stream. I was just I felt lost, and I just felt just like I was just here to live my existence and maybe die somebody who would not leave any um, impact whatsoever. And the beauty of Zoroastrianism in this community, it's like not only have I got that spiritual fulfillment and that happiness that I've never felt, but it's like I feel seen, like I feel, acknowledged. Because one thing about going to church growing up was that you'll go to those little church pews and you're like everybody else in that congregation. It's like no matter what you say or do, is it's like what the pastor, the deacon says, that's all, that's all you're getting. Like your input doesn't mean anything other than the fact that you're a sinner, repent, and hopefully by the grace of God you will go to heaven. But in Zoroastrianism, you don't you're not taught that you don't have original sin. You taught that you were born pure, that you are God's co-worker, you are a Hamkar, you are here to uplift existence. You're not here just to just sit around and be stagnant and hope that something will save you. No, it's like I think what I've come to realize that Zoroastrianism is a religion of doing. And that's why Zarathustra made it so paramount that we live a life of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, because these very things can change the outcome of everything. As we say in our faith, there's no predestination. Our life is like a continuum where everybody's actions can redefine the course of reality. And you really feel empowered as a Zoroastrian because you feel that you can always make a difference. You're never made to feel that you're powerless and you have a choice, because Zarathustra always told us that yeah, in Yasna 30 verse 2, that there's always a choice. Everybody has a choice, and there's nothing out there that can prevent you from being what you are and what you can do to make the world a better place. And sure, we have the spirit of Angramanium and preventing us and those who don't follow the path of Asha and are followers of Druge, and that causes a lot of stagnation in our lives. But at least in Zoroastrianism, you feel that you have the power to do something. You can change, because all my life I always felt that again, it's God's will. You can't make changes for anything because that's going against what He had planned or what He had predestined. And so as I became Zoroastrian, I just started just to see just so much magic happen in my life. I mean, like my health got much better. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have any high blood pressure anymore. I don't have self-esteem issues anymore. I just feel completely recreated, and then meeting this amazing community, I just feel just like I found a family that I've always wanted. I mean, I'm not to say that my parents didn't love me, and they did the best they could for me, but just with going through life, and in my non-Zoroastrian days, you kind of just see that the world that I was living in, it was a very misguided and cruel place. And I don't want to be condescending and say that, oh, humanity and non-Zoroastrian are not good people, but just going through life and just seeing its cruelties, and then when you partake in the Dana of Mazda, you just see that like your life is meant to be uplifted. You are meant to have purpose. You are meant to, matter of fact, like you are a worthy being. You are worthy to live a life of Ushta, radiant happiness. You are meant to live a life where there's kindness and beauty and love, and you're meant to be uplifted, not to live in this world feeling like a cork bobbing in a what do you call it, like a raging ocean. You're meant to live life with purpose and glee, and I just feel refined. And I just I just can't thank Zarathustra for 4,000 years ago laying the foundations for this faith, because I felt like I would have been a lost being, and this community has also shown me a kindness that I've never felt in my life. I remember when I first went to California Zoroastrian Center. I was a little nervous at first because I remember it was in 2022. I actually got to meet Mr. Armin Ariani again because we were trying to actually meet back in 2019, but COVID happened and everybody was scared. Nobody wanted to really interact, and so he's always telling me, he's like, I really want to see you. I really want us to hang out. And I remember it was his birthday. I know his birthday is like 2 days after mine. I'm September 11th, so it was like the 14th. And so I remember I went to Macy's. I got him a birthday present, got him some cologne, and decided to go pay him a visit. And we just had a very it was actually meeting, just seeing him like for the first time actually in person, as opposed to um having our little online friendship. It was just like me having a reunion with a family member. And I remember he's telling me, he's like, oh, hey, I want you to come with me to the temple next Monday because we're gonna have some people who are on a field trip coming. And I said, okay, and I want to do that. So I came, and he showed me over the temple, and he's really invited me into the group. He's even having me ask, or he's giving me questions to. I'm sorry, he's actually allowing me to teach alongside with him, in the class with the field trippers. And I liked how he just made me feel very welcome. So I remember I came the following week, and it was actually my friend Kave's Sudra Pushi. And this is where I really started to meet the community. This is how I met, like, wonderful people like Miss Fariba, who's in this group, Mitra. I started meeting the whole community. I just felt this warm, this embracement that I've never felt. And as I really got to even go to like the Gaham bars, again, I just felt nothing but pure love. Just nobody, even with language barriers, people have just come up to me, just show me nothing but love and respect. And again, I feel seen in this religion. I don't feel isolated. I don't feel like I'm, an outsider. Everybody is welcome to me. I remember when I really first started to pray in the around the fire in the temple. I go in there, and there's this old Zoroastrian lady in there. And I remember I sat right by her, and I'm, reciting the Avesta, my little quarter Avesta that I have. And I remember she turned to me, she looked to me, and I know she spoke very little English, but she was just like, "Oh, very good, very good. I'm happy for you." And that just touched my heart because a guy like me, most places I go, and like I said, I don't look the part. I don't look like your average Zoroastrian. I don't really look like most people there, but I never felt like that was never a factor at all. Like they see me, they wave at me, they hug me, they embrace me. And even I've gone to other religious centers and churches. I've been to mosque, other temples, and people always look at me kind of like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Like, what's your purpose?" But nobody at, California Zoroastrian Center has ever looked at me with suspicion. They just welcomed me, and I've yeah, just been touched by the love of this community, and I just felt that it's my duty now to give back as much as I can to defend this community, love this community, because they have truly uplifted my spirit. And then also with Mazda and the forces that are under him, they have just transformed me and just given me that happiness I've always desired. And after all the self-help books and all the other chanting and meditations, nothing has given me the happiness but Zoroastrianism. And I told everybody at my Suja Pushi that I'm gonna live and die as Zoroastrian. Like there's no other religion that I find is appealing, that is more logical, that is more appealing than this one. And I just feel that, yeah, this religion is for me. I believe it's for everybody, and I think everybody who desires true happiness should become a Zoroastrian. And it's not because people might want to just be rebellious, look for fashion. It's because there's just the self-evident truths that are just so embedded just in the Gathas alone. People can, do their Suja Pushis, read the Quarter of Vesta, but the Gathas alone just have immense power. Just chanting them and meditating on them, reciting the four Gathic prayers, you just find that these things just transform you to the better. And I'm just again just happy that I'm part of this community. I can't thank you guys enough, and I just wanted that to be the conclusion to my story, just how Mazda, he's a true force. He transforms. This religion is not dead, and this religion is not something that is just a relic of the past. It's a living religion, and Mazda's there for you, seeking everybody who desires to know the highest truth. And the fact that he has called me and he has healed and blessed me in so many ways, that just lets me know that, this is it and this is the truth. Mm, mm.
Thank you so much, RJ. What a story, so impressive. Brought tears to my eyes. I love the religion of doing part. That's true. It's just go out there and do good instead of sitting on your butt and, just moan and groan or go to a cave and pray.
Exactly.
It just go out there and, and I think it's much more courageous to go out there and do good than just go in a cave and close your
Exactly.
ears to, wonderful story. Thank you so much.